we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. And first of all, just to advise that we are at a public meeting, so usual form of etiquette, please. Also, could you please keep your microphones muted during discussion and indicate via a show of hand when you wish to speak or chat box. The officers will also keep an eye out because we're at Zoom for me as well. And as we usually do, we do make sure we get everybody in that needs to speak. And I'll move on to declarations of interest. And also we'll take roll call at the same time. Please, James.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Adams, do you have any interests to declare?
No interest, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brennan?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Bullman?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Catchpole?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Hartley?
Present, no declarations.
I'll leave Councillor Holland till she's admitted. Councillor Karimi Guvanlu?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor King?
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Morrell?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Nurden?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Prutton?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Riley?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Shaw?
No declarations.
Councillor Holland, do you have any declarations?
Present, no declarations. Apologies, Chair. I thought it was 10 to 10. So sorry.
And the other members present, Councillor J. Leggett?
Present, and I have a declaration under the Strategic Performance Financial Report, as I'm a trustee of Leeway, and Leeway is mentioned in the papers on page 45. Thank you.
And Councillor Mancini Boyle?
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. That's complete, Chairman.
Thank you, James. So we'll move on to apologies. James?
I don't have any apologies, Chairman.
And the minutes meeting of the 2nd of February, but there is of course exempt minutes in there as well, so we'll hold on to those and then we'll do those at the end of the meeting. So page 5 on your agendas on the minutes. Rather than go through each page, are there any matters of accuracy that need to be attended to or you need to raise or corrections? Yeah, just give it another moment or two. Dave.
Sorry, just a word of thanks under item 223 when my apologies were received. Just to say a thank you to the committee for their kind words of encouragement for a speedy recovery. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. That's much appreciated. Okay, so there's no matters. Sorry, there's no corrections to the minutes. Can we agree they are an accurate record? Move. Yeah. Brilliant. Wonderful. All agreed.
Can I abstain as I wasn't here?
Absolutely, Dave. Thanks very much. Any matters arising? No. Matters arising. Okay, we'll move on to, excuse me, Chairman's announcements. As you have received an email as well, the item of business social prescribing is being put before the SEAT committee, so it's been removed from today's agenda. They'll go through a normal cycle, then back to ONS and Cabinet in a month's time in April. So that'll make the meeting a little bit short today,
which I'm sure none of us are going to moan about. And also, of course, we have our member training next week. And as you know, going back to May 19, when we had the new elections and most of the committee were new here, we were due training, but we've had some, as you know. We was also due training on questioning. We had some training on finance as well. COVID has hit, so that's been very, very difficult to arrange. But over the last few months in discussions with Emma and Sue, we've been able to find a provider that's been able to provide training via Zoom. So we don't know how it's going to go. We hope it's going to go well. Obviously, it'll be a bit more tricky with Zoom, but so the finance has been put together, and that's been put together for us to make sure we've got that training in place. So I do hope you'll support that and attend next week. So I'll move on to cabinet reports. Oh, public speaking. Is there any, Jones?
There is no public speaking, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, cabinet reports. Strategic performance finance, which is page 28, and the lead officer here is Maddie Bison. Are you there, Maddie?
Hello, Chair.
Fire away, Maddie.
Sinead, did you want to do your piece first?
Yeah, of course, Chair,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely,
that
Sinead, of
feeds
course.
through. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. So I'll give you a brief overview of the performance element of the report that you've got in front of you today, and then I'll hand over to Maddie to cover off the finance section. So the report you have in front of you covers the period of Q3, October to December 2020. We've also got a number of the directors and assistant directors in the room in case there are any questions on any of the detail of the report. So our quarterly reports essentially provide an overview of where we are with our finances and progress against our delivery plan, and we report these in quarters 2, 3 and 4, and they also link back to our overarching strategic plan, which sets out our vision and ambitions for the coming years to 2024. So in terms of Q3 and the overall health of the council, so as you can see in the report, 11 of our delivery measures are currently showing as green, which means they are on target to meet our year-end success criteria. 6 of those measures are currently showing as amber, meaning that they are at risk of not meeting our year-end success criteria. 2 are currently showing as red, meaning that they are not on target to meet our year-end success criteria. 9 are being baseline this year, and the remaining are annual measures, which we'll report to you in Q4. So just to bring a few of the highlights and areas of improvement for this quarter to your attention, and I'll start with the growing the economy strategic priority. So the first measure to draw your attention to is on the percentage of vacant retail space in our market towns. So these figures have remained relatively stable in the last 2 quarters, despite the increase in challenges that our market towns are facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And a risk is currently being managed on this measure, as there may be delayed impacts to our businesses, though the council is working on a suite of proposals to support economic recovery in the future. The next measure to draw your attention to is business rates. So this is the collection of business rates, and this measure is currently showing as red, as we do not expect to be able to achieve our year-end success criteria of a 99% collection target by quarter end. In Q3, we had 80% collected, which is below our in-year quarter target, even though the teams have been working with businesses to offer extended and deferred payments where appropriate. The second area to bring to your attention is around supporting individuals and empowering communities. So the first area of real success really is around our numbers of individuals supported by discretionary prevention services. So we've seen real success over the last quarter with nearly 1,600 people being supported through Q1 to Q3 through a range of our services such as our early help hub, welfare and debt advice, as well as our COVID support services. And another area of success over the last quarter is the number of working days it takes us to process new claims of housing and council tax benefit. So even though this service has seen nearly 100% increase in the new claims compared to last year, the average number of working days it takes us to process those claims remains at an average of 5, which is much lower than our year-end target of 7 and is significantly better than previous year past performance. Just to draw your attention to an area which is currently amber under the strategic priority, which is around our successful homelessness interventions. So in Q3, our average success rate was sitting at 62%, which is below our internal target of 80%. So the homelessness service is in a big increase in the number of people that are being supported through the COVID period. And the team are working on improving the performance of this measure, particularly through increased recruitment and training. The third strategic priority area is improving natural and built environment. So the measure I wanted to draw your attention to on this one is the number of affordable homes delivered, including Help to Buy. So in Q3, we had an improved affordable home ownership has been seen, with a total of 65 new homes being delivered, which is double that of the previous 2 quarters combined. So that is a real success. When you look at the strategic housing market assessment for Central Norfolk, this indicates a yearly target of 96 new affordable homes in Broadland. In cumulative total from Q1 to Q3, we're currently sitting at 101 new affordable homes delivered, which shows that Broadland's already exceeded that yearly end target. Finally, just moving with the times, working smartly and collaboratively. So in terms of our staff absence levels for short-term sickness per FTE, so that's currently sitting at 2.83 days, which is lower than our year-end target of 4.5 days. And when you add in the lost days to COVID related absences, this increases by 0.35. But when you combine this, we are still sitting lower than past year performance, which is positive. And finally, on to collection of council tax. So collection rates are lower than previous years. And again, we expect not to be able to achieve our year-end success criteria similar to that of collection of business rates. And that's why this measure is currently showing as red. So while the collection rate for council tax has been impacted, some proactive action is being taken to re-engage with residents and issue notices where appropriate, but also provide proactive support for residents whose circumstances have changed through COVID. So I'll pause there on the performance element, and I'll just hand over now to Maddie to talk through the finance section.
Thank you, Sinead. Maggie?
Thank you, Sinead. Thank you, Chair. So on the Q3 finance position at the moment, we are forecasting to underspend by approximately 860,000 against the revised budget. That is across the actual directorates themselves. So the managing director and the resources, we're forecasting that we would potentially hit within budget. Just very small variances within there. The main drivers for the variance at the moment is the People and Communities Directorate. Within there, we have seen basically an increase in recycling credits. So there's been an increase in tonnages across the green waste and recycling, which has generated additional recycling credits, which we didn't see coming in. So it's beneficial on income. There was also a clinical waste scheme, which we've only piloted to date. We haven't actually undertaken the whole scheme. So there is an underspend coming through there. And then there's just some small elements coming through on the housing benefit as well within People and Communities. We're also seeing a small underspend coming through within the Place Directorate. And this is predominantly through the National Stamp Duty Scheme, which has also been extended at the moment. So we have seen some additional land charge fee income through, coming through with from that initiative to date. Across how that sort of sits with the income, non-pay and pay. So at the moment, income is forecasting to be down compared to budget by about 3.5 million, and this is to do with how the actual housing benefit is now being seen, the initiative, but then that's also being offset within the non-pay, so they're kind of offsetting one another. The additional benefit on the income side of things, which is bringing that non-pay down a bit, is the again the increase income from the land charges. And then within the pay budgets, we're seeing a small underspend of about 82,000, which is primarily from vacancies within the current establishments. On capital, we are seeing a forecasted underspend coming through of about 1.2, or we're currently, sorry, spending 1.2 million against a 10.4 budget. 4.5 million of that budget is under approved schemes and 5.9 is provisional. So that 1.2 spend at the moment is against the 4.5 approved capital spend. And I think that's it within the finances, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Maddie. Yes, are there any questions, Grant?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of questions. First one is to do with paragraph 3.5, the Place Directorate. This is the Finance Revenue Dashboard overview. I was just very curious about the relationship between stamp duty fees, land charges, and how the extension or the exemption currently in place impacts our income. That's the first question. And then the second question, and I did send an email to the man who knows everything, Mr. Courtier, about on the capital budget, there's a reference to the Reedham Quay and what work was being planned, and when is this work being planned for, or when was it planned for? Because I note that we've virtually spent a tenth of our capital budget. I would have thought also, looking at the Thorpe Lodge refurbishment, that because the office is, or the Thorpe Lodge has been sort of fairly vacant over the COVID period, that would have been an ideal time to do any refurbishment work. And of course, it would help the economy in the form of the builders or whoever does that type of work, that they would have work to do while COVID was on. So those are just my questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm not sure which officer wants to come in on this, maybe Ronnie, but also I've picked up, could I I've just also picked up reference to Phil, and Phil has also indicated that he's happy to answer. Did you want to pop in first, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair. Just in terms of Councillor Nurden's first question around stamp duty, just to confirm that, as you'll be aware, the government effectively waived stamp duty and has just recently extended it. You'll be familiar with that. That has done exactly what I think they wanted it to do, which was to stimulate the housing market. So actually, we've seen quite an exceptionally buoyant housing market, even over and above what we were projecting. So every time people are moving house, they're carrying out searches, and every time they carry out a search, we're getting an income for providing that information. That is the link. In terms of Reedham Quay, again, Councillor Nurden emailed me last night or yesterday afternoon. I have started looking into that. Work has been carried out, Councillor Nurden, just in terms of Reedham Quay, some finger signs, some recycling bins, some works. I can send you details of that. I haven't sent it to you yet because I just wanted to correlate to make sure that this was the same budget. That work was £15,000 to date. So I think there is a correlation, but I just want to confirm that before I forward it on to you. And as I say, I'm happy to forward that on to you once I have made that correlation.
Right, thank you, Phil.
Okie dokie. And before I come back to Maddie or Rodney, also Emma, I think you've indicated that you could come back to this point on Thorpe Lodge.
Yep, absolutely, Chairman. In terms of the maintenance at Thorpe Lodge, so you're absolutely right. We have in the capital budget some funding to do some maintenance, mainly around the heating and the air conditioning. That was predicated on getting stock condition surveys done. During COVID, the company that we use to do our stock condition surveys weren't actually coming out initially to do them because of COVID concerns in the building. So they took longer to get through, and we've only just received the receipt of those. Hence, we're carrying that forward to next year. I absolutely agree with what Councillor Nurden. It's a shame we weren't able to offer that work out, but we needed to get those full stock condition surveys before we proceeded with that work.
Right, Grant, thank you. And now, Maddie or whoever, do you want to come back in on the other points that Grant raised, please?
Rodney, are you able to come in on any of those?
Sorry, what were the other points that haven't been addressed? I thought.
Well, that's okay, Rodney. Just 1 second. Let me handle this. Grant, just come back in, and if you can make those points that you was making around the financial point on 3.2, I believe it was, just off the top of my head. I think it's 3.2.
Yeah, no, that was sorted out by Mr. Courtier. So my questions have all been answered. Thank you.
Okay, it's all encapsulated there. Brilliant, wonderful. Well, completely covered there, Grant, I'm pleased to say. So, Peter, I think you were next in.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 39, 331, we talk about the savings which are resulting from the one team. Could somebody please list how those savings are made up, in what areas and when?
Sorry, Peter, that was page 39 and which...
we're predicting savings, cumulative savings of 2.086 million next year.
3.31, Peter, yeah?
3.31, yeah.
Yeah.
And 1.4 from I assume the current year. How are those savings actually made up?
Okey-dokey. Yes. Who's best to come back on this? Rodney?
Rodney.
Yes, as I don't have the full detail to hand on that, but very much the savings are very much coming from the joint senior management team across the two authorities. So they were delivered a couple of years ago now. And the other big area is very much about the joining together of the teams. So when we're joining together the teams, there were savings with posts being reduced from the structure. And as we're moving forward, as we're implementing joint policies, procedures and processes, it is allowing us to sort of capture additional savings where actually we're able to make the processes more efficient. We have reported in the past about the progress on this to the joint lead member group, and we are intending to start reporting that to the joint informal cabinet. It obviously didn't get reported at this meeting, but it is our proposal to start reporting back on this joint one team savings through that mechanism in the future.
Will that give me all the detail I'm after?
It will give you a lot more detail than is in this report.
Well, there isn't much, is there? So it wouldn't be difficult.
Yes.
Second question, staff absence levels. We only seem to be measuring those that are related to short-term illness. What is the overall figure for staff absence in percentage terms?
Chairman, I can answer that, but Councillor Bourman, can you just point me in the direction of where you are, please, in the report?
332? 332?
332.
You're reporting short-term staff absence, excluding COVID, which I understand, but we don't, or at least it's not reported, what the overall staff absence level is, including long-term absence.
Well, it's because the measure that was agreed as part of the delivery plan was that we would record short-term sickness. So that's what you've got in front of you.
Okay, well, I'd like the information then, please.
Okay, I can provide that, but that ordinarily wouldn't come through in this report because it's not a measure that we've agreed as a council when you signed off the delivery plan to receive.
Okay, well, I would like to know it, please. So if I can have that as a separate item of information, that would be helpful, please.
Are you okay with that, Emma?
I will need to do those, and I will share them with all of the committee. I'll email them round outside of the meeting, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Even better.
Just before I move on to the next committee member, just to follow up on the point that Peter raised under 3.2 on the savings. What is in this, as Emma's just said, that the other point Peter's raised isn't normally in this report, but this one clearly is, and that's the savings. To progress towards savings as projected from the 8.6 indicative savings, of course. There was never actually ever, we've got to make 8.6 and they're going to be made. It was always indicative. But that is there. So I believe irrespective of the informal cabinet or irrespective of the previous that went before that, I think that we're still should have the detail here or followed through from the meeting, Rodney, irrespective of the informal cabinet, because it's in part of this report. So is that also possible to provide that to committee as well?
Yeah, yes, we can do that.
Thanks very much, Rodney, much appreciated. And then I think next, yeah. Also, I think that the next council was Sue Catchpole, and then we've got Martin after that. Sue.
Thank you, Chair. I have just 3 comments really. I was really pleased to see that under 3.33, where people find themselves in difficulties being able to pay their council tax, that the recovery action has been adapted to take account of resident circumstances. I think some compassion is the order of the day in this pandemic and post-pandemic period. A question over the intervention over homelessness is, if we're not managing to meet our own targets, please can somebody explain what we're going to do about that? I haven't heard anything that actually says what steps are going to be put into place to improve our success in helping people who are homeless. And just a small question on page 33, the local authority green homes grants. I just wondered if somebody could explain to me a bit more about those. I seem to have passed me by and I just wondered what it was. Thank you.
Sinead? Or...
So, Chair, I can come back a bit on this about the council tax collection rates. Obviously, this report was written a while ago. It's probably useful if I just update the committee on where we are with collection rates for council tax as at the end of February. So as at the end of February, our collection rate for council tax is 95.13%, which is about 0.44% below where we'd ideally like to be to meet this 98% target. So you'll see we're not significantly below, but we are a little bit below. And the reason why we think we're not going to be hitting the year-end target is because although it's only 0.4% down, it equates to about £400,000 worth of money. So there'll be a delay in recovering that money. So what we'll do, we'll continue with recovery action next year. So obviously we don't just go at the end of the year, actually, okay, we haven't been able to recover it. We will continue taking action and actually agreeing payment plans with people for the following year. So the idea is actually we'll continue recovering this money going forward. It is possible that we may come back to members in due course as part of the overall COVID recovery plans, and actually we have got more debt than we would ideally like, and therefore is there a case for actually putting some more resource into recovery, but that will be considered in the future meetings. I must admit, I wasn't quite clear on the point about the homelessness. Perhaps we can have a bit more clarity on that.
Chair, I can interject on that one if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, Jamie, wonderful.
An excellent question from Councillor Catchpole, and in a limited space, we maybe haven't given credence to the amount of work going on in the housing team to address the situation. So a few things I would maybe observe. It's always a problem, isn't it, when you present as a percentage that it doesn't necessarily give you an idea of the actual numbers of what's going on behind the scenes. And I think the narrative explains a little bit about the COVID context. Both in increased demand in terms of housing, which you'll be aware of because it's a pretty well-known issue. People are experiencing greater degrees of hardship right now, but also the nature and profile of that demand, different sorts of individuals presenting to us than we would normally expect, and maybe engaging with the council at a later point in their journey, which means there's less time to put in place the prevention activities that the council has such a strong ethos around. So to address that, a lot of work in the team is going on. We're particularly mindful, and I've spent some time with the portfolio holder working through some data on this, but we're pretty mindful of the fact that with the end of the evictions embargo or the use of bailiffs, plus the furlough scheme coming to an end at some point, although it continues to be extended, there are some kind of cliff edges, if you like, for people who may well be on the cusp of significant hardship or affordability of their current living situation. So the team are working really hard to engage with registered providers, but also letting agencies to make sure that we are aware in advance of any potential cliff edge of those people who are experiencing those hardships, the people who are falling into significant arrears. It's much more sensible, both on a financial and a moral footing, that we work with them well in advance of any eviction. So we can either look to put in place the financial support they need, or we can look to rehome them into accommodation that is more suitable to their finances in advance of any kind of significant turmoil created by an eviction. There's also some social media campaigning going on for the rest of the private sector leasing market, which may not be covered by letting agencies, but maybe, as the housing team described them, almost accidental landlords, people who've inherited second homes and are letting them out. So we're trying to cover as many bases as we can. I mean, that's particular COVID context. The other side to it, I would draw colleagues' memories back to the recent sign-off of a new allocations policy and the implementation of a new system across the one housing team for both councils, which, although it's a much more longer term footing, is going to make a significant difference to the speed at which we can work reduction in bureaucracy and creating some more headspace for the team to get more and more into the prevention type activity. The other thing I'd maybe observe is that I think the percentage rate that we're looking at, although we set a target of 80%, and that target feels absolutely reasonable and something we should aspire to deliver, and the team will deliver it, we are working towards that. That performance of around 60% is historically relatively stable. So it's something we're working through with the team on how we make sure they have the tools, the skills, the headspace, the capacity to meet that aspiration. And I repeat, that aspiration is absolutely the right aspiration to have. We should be focusing on prevention and meeting as many of our customers' demands in advance of crisis as we can. But Councillor Catchpole, if you have anything else you want to follow up on, I'm more than happy to answer or take offline.
Could I just come back, Chair?
Yep.
From your point of view then, Jamie, what is the sticking point, or what are the sticking points for getting from where we are to where you'd like us to be at 80% help?
No one thing, Councillor Catchpole. Lots of smaller things. So I think the previous administration regime around housing has been an inhibitor. That's something we're addressing through the system and the policy that have recently been put in place. I think we've been struggling for a while with capacity. We've had some turnover in the team. COVID, like it has with many services, has taken its toll in terms of stress. The increased demand that we've seen over the last few months or even maybe years now because of the context we're working in have all had some effect on our performance. But the things I've described feel like proportionate and appropriate response to the situation, and I think will start to feed through in our performance over the next few months.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. Martin, I think you was next, and yeah.
Thank you. I was just one question on 3.24, the collection of business rates, and obviously a lot of it gears around percentages, but I just wondered whether or not there was a breakdown of, you know, where that the 20% comes from. Is it from business failures? Of the 20%, how many have received business rate relief and then still not paid? Is there some figures on that? And I think a lot of the questions I had on 3.33 have already been answered. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Would you like to come back on that?
If I can, Chair.
You,
so for business rates, you're absolutely right that there have been a large number of businesses receive business rate reliefs. So what we're reporting here is actually the net amount collectible. So in a normal year, we'd be collecting best part of £30 million in business rates. Because of all the additional reliefs, we're now down about £18 million in net business rates relief that we'll be collecting. So that reported figure is 80% of that net collectible debit, as we call it. So we don't have a breakdown of exactly where those losses are, because if we look at the position at the end of February, we're currently collected about 93.24% of what we expect, compared to a normal year, which would be about 95%. So again, we're about 1.6% down on where we'd like to be, which is why we think it's going to be very challenging to get to 99%. We're probably still going to be up at 97, 98%, but we still won't be quite hitting that target. And in money terms, that's probably about £300,000 worth of extra debt that we've got that we'd ideally like at this point in time. And I think, tomorrow, it's a mixture of reasons people can't pay. Obviously, for some businesses, even though they're closed, they haven't had sort of the same sort of level of throughput as normal. So this is we very much agreed payment deferral terms. So normally we would ask people to pay all their council tax or all their business rates in the year. But in some circumstances, we have said, OK, we'll allow you to carry forward making payments of this year's debt into next year to take account of the circumstances. I also think there's been an issue in that at the start of the year that the courts weren't open for this type of business, and some businesses need that nudge of the threat of court action before they'll engage with ourselves, and therefore, as we haven't been able to actually get that working at the start of the year, there's been a slight delay in getting some of these more difficult to engage with sort of businesses and residents to pay. But once that's now started, we are then able to actually put that little bit of pressure of the people who, they can pay, but just prefer to delay it as long as possible. And I think that's part of this issue as well for this collection rate. But overall, I think we just need to put into context that actually we're still looking at a collection rate of 97, 98% of your business rates for the year. So although it's red, it's not a catastrophe, it's just a understandable small reduction in income as a result of COVID.
Thank you, Rodney. Nigel Brennan. I've got you, Natasha. You're after Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just a very quick question. Possibly Phil can help us with this one. On 3.30, regarding the installing of planning applications for householders. I can't quite see what restriction would stop somebody going out with a notice and a hammer and a nail to put up on a telegraph pole or wherever. I mean, if we can collect bins every week and postman comes around every day, are we really prevented from putting up notices?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Councillor Brennan, it's not necessarily the actual putting up of notices. The challenge is that we carry out a site inspection, and in normal circumstances, in the good old days when if I was going out on site, I might grab 15 files and I'd go around and I'd just call on people's houses without any prior warning. Since COVID, it was through our risk assessments, it was felt inappropriate just to turn up at people's properties without forewarning and to make sure that they weren't shielding or isolating in any way. So now what has to happen through this current crisis is that each site visit has to be pre-arranged and timed. And that's just added a slowness that wasn't there before and won't be there again in the future. But as I say, through those risk assessments, it wasn't just putting up the notice, it's then the fact that we go onto people's properties and we have a right of access to enter people's properties without warning, whereas now we are actually forewarning them and arranging those appointments in advance.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Natasha?
Thank you, Chair. Going back to the housing issue, Jamie, you talked about the cliff edges people are going to be facing. I was just thinking about the universal credit issue. That's going to be £20 uplift is coming to an end in October, isn't it, as well? So do we have, you have lists of people where this may affect them, you know, thinking about prevention, if you know who's claiming universal credit and how that £20 coming to a stop is going to affect them, because it seems to be, you know, yet another perfect storm. All of these things are happening in the run up to Christmas again, and it's quite concerning.
An excellent point, Natasha. We don't. I don't know, but I need to go and ask the benefits team. I don't know that we do have lists of, as you describe. I suppose really the issue for us is not specific to the £20 reduction. It's more about understanding where people are for a variety of reasons hitting some degree of hardship. It may be in some cases that a reduction of £20 a week, which equates to just over £1,000 a year, which is a much more significant way of looking at the problem, isn't it? Is the tipping point between their ability to hit their rent or not,
yeah.
or indeed to buy food or not. I guess really, I can't think of an obvious clever way to get into that level of intelligence. I think probably the more sensible thing as we continue to do is to try to make sure that people understand the availability of help that's on offer to them via and actually COVID has been remarkably successful in Broadland in terms of furthering our help hub, the level of support that the district council is known to be the front door to, and our profile in the community around such an offer. So I think it's continued to augment those sorts of things to make sure that where people do hit degrees of hardship, they're stepping forward sooner to ask for help than waiting for the crisis to really come to some sort of a head. And you know, and indeed councillors play a really significant and important role in that as well, in terms of their own wards, working with individuals and families on a street by street level. Without more time to give you a more considered answer, that's probably where my head goes immediately, but I'll certainly take that one away. And you're absolutely right, you know, it could be perceived as yet another cliff edge that we'll need to be cognizant of come the autumn.
Thank you. I've also got another comment. This might be Phil's area. You talked about the housing market being stimulated. No, we don't have council housing here, and we're talking about getting more properties for rent, but do we have any data on any of these properties? How many are second homes for people and how many are buy-to-let homes at all? But I'm just wondering if that's going to be inflating the local housing market, therefore making it more difficult for local families to afford to have somewhere to live, basically.
Yeah, again, good question. I don't have that raw data at hand. I think anecdotally, second homes are not so much of a problem for Broadland as perhaps they are for certainly North Norfolk, where it is a major problem. It's less of a problem for Broadland. In terms of buy-to-let, again, no, we don't. But again, there's been incentivization away from buy-to-let and much more towards home ownership in recent years. So it's not, anecdotally, it's not something that I hear as a major problem, certainly in this area as it stands at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I haven't got anybody else unless I've missed somebody on my screens. If I have, please, please shout. No. Okay, so we'll round this up. Caroline, just got you. Just in time, Caroline.
Thanks, Steve. I was just thinking on the back of Natasha's question, what about vacant homes that have been vacant a long time? Do we have numbers of those that we could put back into use again?
Maybe because I got to the mute button quicker than Phil, I don't know, but maybe I need to slow down, Phil. We again, like Phil says, we do. I don't have that data to hand. We do have that data, obviously. Like Phil said, anecdotally, my understanding is we don't have an endemic problem with empty homes, but clearly every empty home is an opportunity to rehome someone. So it is probably one to take away and come back with that data if Scrutiny would so require.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That'd be good to get them back into use again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and Phil, just before you come in, Phil, I'm saying this before you do, because you'll probably remember this in Broadland. We used to have a regular report coming to us on the empty homes, how many empty homes. There was also, Jonathan, you'll remember this as well. We also used to have a running total of how well that was doing, how long. Some had been 2 years, 1 year, what the reasons were, because there was an issue to drive at those, and there was detailed reports coming to INS all the time, which we had to focus on. So Jamie, just in terms of that we could get back to that is helpful, actually. Phil, now I've preempted you, Phil.
No,
I'm sure you was going to say that, Phil.
Yeah, Steve, I see you as a nice warm-up act. So. No, you're absolutely right. You may remember probably about in the region of 5 to 8 years ago, there was a real government push towards trying to address empty homes. And it was actually a constant challenge we saw with the growth agenda, that people said, well, you got all these empty homes lying around, what are you going to do about that? So actually there was a real push across the country, but also in Broadland, to try to bring those properties back into use. That's not easy, because you often have to end up going through court action to bring them back into use. I think probably the 80-20 rule applies, and actually the low-hanging fruit, the 80%, we were able to deal with, and so there was quite a lot of activity. And actually Rodney will probably, in terms of, we got new homes bonus as well for bringing those empty homes back into use. In more recent times, because we've addressed the loss of those easier properties, we are now in a position where actually it's a lot more complex. Those properties, which are fewer now because we have taken action, are much more difficult to bring back into use. And therefore it's that sort of question of prioritizing resources appropriately. And actually they can be very complex matters where people say, well, it's not vacant because I have it, and I go back once every year or something like that. So much more of a surge a few years ago, less of a surge now, but it's still something that Kevin Philcox and his team in Jamie's directorate handle and lead on very well.
Okay. Just reading what you put here, Jamie.
Sorry, Chair. I could have said it really, couldn't I? It would have been quicker. Just to note that there's a piece of work due to come forward on the delivery plan, which looks at this situation in the rounds, notably because there's been a change in the way that the law is applied, led by some precedent elsewhere in the country. So it's a bigger conversation, but just letting you know it's on the agenda in due course.
Thank you, Jamie. So Phil, Jamie, on those figures, could we get back into that process again of how many, what the issues are?
And on that, Chair, I will get to my mute button quicker than Jamie, because that is, and on that basis, it's Jamie's responsibility, so I'll leave it with him.
Oh, thanks very much. So over to you then, Jamie. Unmute.
That's fine, Chair. I'll look into it.
Okie dokie. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm going to bring this to a close now, and well done. There's been some very good scrutiny questions on this, and the recommendation here is two recommendations: to note the review and capital position variance details in Appendix 1, also to note the 2020-21 performance for Q3 details in Appendix 2. Do we agree to note? Would somebody like to move that? Moved. Seconded. Wonderful. Could we please have a show of hands? All those agree? Thank you. James,
that appears to be unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, officers, as well. I'm just Hannah, I'm just going through this. Are you on any of these reports, Hannah?
In what sense, Chairman?
Sorry, are you due to report on any of these, present on any of these reports?
So obviously Sinead and Maddie have presented the reports today to you. In terms of measures, we've got one on customer satisfaction, which we are currently developing in line with the new customer experience.
No, sorry, Hannah. It's my fault. It's just that I'm not sure actually whether you're going to come in on a report. There's a reason for saying this. I'm not sure if all committees are aware that you are leaving, and just out of courtesy, really, just want to say, I know you've been a long term and done some sterling work in South Norfolk before the joint working. So just to wish you all the best. I understand you're off to London. Is that right?
I am, yeah, but you're not rid of me yet, Chairman. I've got a few more months to go yet, so will be a few more committees, I think, to go, but probably May, June time, I think.
Well, probably me. I misread that. I thought it was more imminent than that. So thank you, Emma. And anyway, all the best from ONS, even though a bit premature.
Thank you very much.
Very because you're moving to London, a bit of rap on the street, all the best from ONS. Do you get it? Right. See you later, Emma. Thank you. Okay, so back to report. Item 11, COVID-19 hardship policy. Lindsay Sauer and Richard Dunshire. Whoever's going to move, present first, please fire away. Page 76.
Thank you, Chairman. They're both interviewing this morning, and so they were hoping to be here, but they might pitch up. But if not, I'll start and
wonderful
and crack on. Thank you, Chairman. Just a basic overview of where we are, the details of the fund. So this fund is specifically looking at working age residents who experience hardship, specifically due to the coronavirus pandemic. So we know those people, particularly around furloughed or who have now been made redundant. We know that furlough is carrying on, but these are a lot of residents have been on a relatively low wage anyway, 80% of that, etc. So some families haven't had the resilience, and so they're really struggling with just basic hardship payments. So we're looking at an amount of £25,000 to put into this COVID fund for next year to help support people with the basic essentials, just to stabilise and ensure that they've got sufficient ability and resilience just to move forward. So then we can then help them support to develop. Applying for a COVID the fund, you'll notice that that we've made everything online. We're trying to support everything to make it as easy as possible, but as always, we will support people if they can't access us online. We need some basic details, but the aim of this scheme is to, as we have been doing throughout the current year, is to make it as easy as possible for people to apply. We're using Joseph Rowntree minimum income standards as our baseline, which is a nationally recognised way of making sure that that we support people, we support the right people to gain access, and so there's some standards there with that, and you can see in the criteria there about what that would mean to families. And the different values. So the award may be made up to £500. I mean, this is all stuff that's been going on, and it's proven to be very successful up to date. So this is a continuation of what we're doing now, and it's proved to help basically support that cohort of people who just get them back on the feet while we look at other options. And we've got a range of options, as you'll see in the report, to help boost people and get them back on the right track, so they can, particularly when the economy opens, and then we can support them back into work and financial inclusion again. I mean, that's basically a report, Chairman, but I'm more than happy. I can see some questions there, so I'm more than happy to ask any questions or answer any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Grant.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. Just looking at the report, it talks about they are suffering severe financial hardship. And the first question is, how do you measure the what is severe and maybe what is extreme? Because when I look at the bottom of page 81, if, for example, a couple with no children are earning less than 26,000 and don't have, for example, savings, are they in severe or in maybe danger of being, well, it's just how do you measure the severity of the hardship? and whether it's severe or extreme. And then the second question I have is paragraph on the same page, 81, paragraph 3.2 says the amount of fund will be 25,000 for each council. Is this not Broadland's hardship fund policy, where it should read the amount of the fund will be 25,000, which has been apportioned from the COVID support fund, which has been allocated. So that was just the second question. It's probably just a technicality. But if that can be sorted, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I mean, at 3.2, yes. I mean, I perhaps should have put that in for so that was perhaps laziness on my part, so we can get that changed. So that's so each council, obviously, there's a report going in for South Norfolk as well. It's really difficult in terms of what is severity, what is extreme. Obviously, it's you know, one person's extreme is another's severe. What we've used is we use the Joseph Rowntree Foundation has given a set of principles, and that seems to resonate, and that has worked up to now. It's impossible to come up, because some people, I mean, a single person potentially can, depending on their other circumstances, their support networks, their mental health, their mental resilience. You know, there's a huge amount of determinative factors in this. So we've kind of gone with a level that we think is roughly about right, and obviously we're constantly tweaking that as we go.
Chair, if I might, the only other thing I'd answer to Councillor Nurden's excellent question is we have a group of really highly qualified professional staff in our housing and benefits team for whom these sorts of conversations and judgments when talking to people who are presenting in degree of hardship are best placed to make the judgment about what level of support is needed or not needed. I think, you know, it's obviously important from a council point of view to have a policy and parameters around which any support officer will work, but within that there has to be some professional discretion as to how best to support people when they present.
Thank you, Jamie, and Richard, that's very helpful.
Yes, thank you for your excellent answers there, officers, as well. The point from me on the hardship fund, we've got COVID-19 hardship fund policy 21-22. How does this differ, or does it differ, to the existing long-term Broadland District Council hardship fund, which was established back in 2014? Does this differ to that scheme?
So this is an extension of that scheme, Chairman. So this is specific to looking at the additional impact that COVID's has, which is why we want to run it for another year, and then obviously we can then see from that whether or not we can then come back into our normal hardship scheme, because inevitably there'll be hardship, which we've had since 2014, and we've had a very effective scheme in place. So this is an additional one on that, Chairman.
Okay, and this is some scrutiny I do need to do for us as well. The original hardship scheme, I think there's only one other councillor present now, certainly within this committee, that will remember this. This goes back to a proposition to do away with the hardship scheme that existed back in 2013-14, and ONS unanimously agreed that was not a good idea, and that went through to council, and there were 2 votes at council, and the council agreed with ONS by majority decision. That's why we still have a hardship fund. The thing I'm just trying to distinguish here is, again, it's just applying some scrutiny to this, Jamie, is that the figures for last year on the hardship fund, I know there's an allocation put to one side for that. I know each year it's been reviewed, but right this moment, I can't remember what that figure is. How does this compare with that? Is it the same, higher or lower? And just again, making sure that it's additional to the existing hardship allocation for this year.
You know, Chairman, I knew you'd ask something that I didn't know the answer to, but I can absolutely find that out. I should know that. That's ridiculous. But Richard would have been able to tell you straight away. But I can absolutely find that out. But and I mean, as I say, the principles by the hardship fund is where Broadland has always positioned itself. It's a spring, not a cushion. So you know, it's ensuring you capture someone who falls off. Yeah. That thing, and then we can, you know, absolutely bounce them back into sustainable outcomes. So that's that same principle of which we'll carry on with the hardship fund, and there will be we're not sure how, and this is still because it's still emerging, how long we will require this this element of hardship fund. This obviously what we've done over the last 12 months will always influence because we continually look at that. So you know, by this time next year we'll be in a position to review everything and then see where we are. So you know, there's a constant learning with this type of work. Okay, and just one final clarification. I know you've already answered this, mate. Absolutely sure. It's an additional COVID hardship fund, additional to the existing hardship fund that is currently running. That's additional right. Sum of money. Yeah, that's right, Chairman. So it's additional funding. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle has offered to give an answer to this.
Wonderful, Trudy. I knew I didn't see you there, but knowing you probably have the figure to hand.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to say that £15,000 was spent last year on this. So we have put additional this year. That doesn't mean to say that's the end of the story. If more is required, more will come forward. So yeah, 25 is seen as adequate for the year.
Okie dokie, brilliant. And there's leeway there that can come forward, as you say, Trudy, isn't there? Brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brilliant.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
Councillor Catchpole.
Chair, I did ask it. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Shall I ask my question?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So it's just leading on from what Grant asked, really. I'm wondering, how are people identified as being in hardship? And so what would the message be to residents? How would we communicate to them that to clarify when they are at a point when they maybe ought to get in contact with the council? So it's more the sort of practicalities of at what point does somebody have to be in a difficult situation before the council could possibly help them, so that we can help more people over the next year, which is obviously when there's going to be a lot larger number of people needing help. Thank you.
And I think for that, it's a good question, Councillor Catchpole. And I think for what we've done throughout the whole year is we'd much rather, the danger is you put a whole host of criteria about qualifications, about you know what, and it just confuses people. And actually we've gone with the approach we'd like to continue next week. If you feel as a resident that you are in a muddle, come and talk to us. And that's the kind of, you know, general help hub and benefits principle. What we can do from there, we can then talk with you, and as we said, we've got, you know, really highly trained benefits officers now on this type of work, so we can assess to see actually how much hardship you're in. Actually, if it's a case that we just need to sort budgeting out, whether actually it's not financial assistance, it may be assistance for other areas as well. And I think by encouraging that approach, we can also identify all the other issues around it as well. For example, you know, mental well-being, domestic abuse. So actually, I think the message is, for me, is to carry on. Is if you feel as though you are in hardship or you're struggling, just come and talk to us, and that's certainly the message that we want to promote.
Yeah, thank you. And that principle, the whole purpose of this is to ensure that there is this discretionary fund that can be applied where perhaps other things don't fit as well. So having it in this discretionary way is a real plus. And you know, some councils just don't apply that in that way, and you can understand why, because of resource. So to have this allocated fund, which again was part of the principle of the original hardship fund within Broadland, is an important point to maintain, as you say, Mike, on that basis. Natasha, I think you is next.
Thank you, Chair. just want to state my full support of this fund. I'm really pleased to hear how you are framing it, that it's not, a set of criteria. But my question is, how difficult is it for people to actually get it? I'm thinking of the kind of people I'm hearing about most prominently are people who are leaving situations such as domestic violence, when they might be leaving the home in the clothes they are standing up in. It might be just a sudden snap decision, now is the time to go. And a local charity last week in Sproutston were fundraising buying underwear because they don't have the money for it. They are literally leaving as a matter of urgency. And it took people crowdfunding in the community to buy them underwear for basic dignity. I think if you're in that situation where you've plucked up the courage to finally leave a really horrible situation, perhaps the last thing you want to do is to tell your story to yet another person and fill in a form and all of that kind of thing. It was great that this fund is there, but is it intrusive? Is it another brain drain on people? And also, can people be referred? So if somebody went to a trusted community figure, perhaps for advice and support, such as a domestic abuse charity, would that charity be able to then nudge them over towards this fund, or do the people have to come and ask for it themselves? A lot of questions there, sorry.
Not at all, Councillor. It's a passion of mine anyway, with supporting domestic abuse. And absolutely, we've got with Broadland, we fund a leeway worker. So either if an individual came to us via the benefits team and declared something around domestic abuse, we would transfer that support over to leeway anyway. But absolutely, if it comes the other way, there's nothing to stop, and we would be absolutely supportive of it. And we have this on a regular basis, where either a hostel, a leeway provider, or trusted children's services, for example, would come in and say, actually, we've got a muddle, and then we can sort stuff out really, really quickly. And well, as we've discussed before, and it's that key time of when that individual, male or female, makes that decision to leave. That's an absolute critical time, one, for their welfare, but also for that decision making to move. So I would be really supportive, and I actively encourage teams to take that into account. So certainly, and there are people, and then we also get people who can't read or write, and everything's online, and that's incredibly efficient. Yeah. But when you put everything online, that's great for those who can, as long as you've got support for those who can't. So as long as we get that balance right, and that's a continuous improvement journey for us.
Oh, thank you. That's really good. I'm really pleased that you're being really inclusive and just sensible about it, not getting bogged down in bureaucracy. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. And a leeway worker, Mike, as you say, that the interlink there is pretty key, actually, on that. So thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
Chair, I did put a question in the chat at 10:56.
Have I missed you? Sorry, Martin, I've seemed to have missed you on the chat here somewhere. Yeah, anyway, Martin, fire away.
Thoroughly support this report. I did just have a question on 3.1, 3.4, 4.5. I think Trudy's answered a little bit, but it's more a question of we've got the hardship fund here being proposed at 25,000, which obviously £500 payment means that we've got 50 placements that we can put forward under this. Under 3.4, it's great that we've been able to provide the track and trace. How much have we spent so far? And I think Trudy did say 15,000, I think. So it's more a question of how many cases. But again, this was at the sort of like through the first stage of the COVID and the help and assistance. And now that we're coming out of it into the next phase, the encouragement should be to make sure that anybody who has tested positive does stay at home, and hopefully this will be rolled out even more, and we can get this into the communities. My question is 25,000 going to be enough? Is it going to provide enough comfort and support for the Broadland residents to ensure that they do stay at home if they test positive?
Chair, if I may answer that question, sorry, Mike. Another excellent question. I mean, Councillor Morrell will be aware that we have, in parallel to the work we do around hardship, of which this fund is a really useful tool for the team, but we have a number of other mechanisms that we can call upon, some of which are ours, some of which are sitting with partner agencies to put in place the right support for people. That point about isolation is a distinct and separate funding stream. So councillors will be aware that the government has given us two top-ups now of money for the hardship support payment. Forgive me, not hardship, the test and trace support payment, which is £500 as a static amount, not up to £500, which is what the hardship policy is talking about, which is specifically for supporting those people, enabling those people who've been asked to isolate by the test and trace system or any other kind of outbreak to remain at home. And that scheme, as many schemes have from the government through COVID, has developed iteratively as we've gone along. We're well placed as an authority because we have the right connections, and we've seen a good uptake of that money. We've also made the case strongly for and have been allocated a significant proportion of money from public health, from the county council, under the Containing Outbreak Management Fund, which is a large amount of money passed to the upper tier from government to do exactly what it says on a tin, to help contain the outbreak. So £250,000 has been allocated to this authority should we need it, and once the government's money that's been given to us has been exercised, because it is recognised collectively by agencies to be such an important tool in our ability to encourage people to follow and adopt the right behaviours in isolation to help protect others and to contain any additional spread. That notwithstanding, obviously the team take every opportunity when they are partaking in contact tracing, follow up on people who've been asked to isolate, to make sure that non-financial support is in place as well, be that food or other essentials, or whether it be more about well-being and mental support. So we're well placed to make sure that we have a multifaceted offer to residents should they need it.
Okay, Martin.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I just want to make sure that we have sufficient funds in there, and just make sure is the 25,000 sufficient. So,
and we would just to answer. I mean, as Councilman Sweeney Boyle said, there is additional. If we find that we can't, then obviously we can look at additional funding after that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and also Trudy's portfolio holder confirmed that as well, which no doubt we can. That's also part of what's going on here as well. So that can also be popped in the minute as well, which I'm sure James can pick up on for us. Is there anyone else before we round this up? I'm just looking, it's 11:15. So need to move forward, I believe. So turning to the recommendation, Cabinet approves the adoption of the COVID-19 hardship policy of financial year 2021-22. Propose that. Got a second? All those in favour?
To be unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much, and thank you, officers, once again. We had some excellent questions and some excellent answers. Thank you very much. Next item, affordable home ownership. Kay, I believe you are presenting. I can see a screen here for you, Kay, somewhere.
Sorry, I was having problems getting my video to work. It kept defaulting back to turning it off again.
Oh, no, that's
Good
like.
morning.
Far away,
Good morning,
please.
councillors.
Nice to see you, Kay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this affordable home ownership report is a subsequent one that went in July 2019 to Broadland members. At that time, it was asking to remove the local connection criteria for all affordable home ownership products. Following that report, it was we were given the steer to go away and explore a reciprocal agreement with South Norfolk and Norwich City, so the Greater Norwich connection, as a pilot scheme. So we went away and we've explored this. Sorry. So I just need to emphasise that this report doesn't relate at all to the allocation of the rented units. This is purely around affordable home ownership units, and it's specifically the discounted market sale and shared equity ones that we expect to be delivered in future years. We've noticed that delivery of these units has dropped down, so we're expecting to see more delivery of shared ownership units coming through. So we only expect this will impact on possibly 15 to 20 units per year, discounted market sale ones, possibly less actually, because developers are moving away from these units. So the proposal is for a pilot scheme for mutual qualification criteria for applicants who are current residents of any of the 3 districts to be able to apply for new build, discounted market sale and shared equity units. We also note that we're already approving applicants who are current residents of Norwich City or South Norfolk for these properties, because we see a large number who work in Broadland and who have close family who meet the application criteria but are current residents of the other districts. So we don't believe this will have a detrimental effect on Broadland residents. It will just open up to other residents to be able to access them across any of the 3 districts. We also note that requiring the Help to Buy registration for the shared ownership is helpful, as applicants often move between the tenures when they start looking at their finances. So often they think they can afford a discounted market sale, but once they look at the finances, they then move on to the Help to Buy equity loan product, or can only afford shared ownership, which has been seen to be the more affordable home ownership tenure in the district. So the report, the recommendations are that affordable home ownership products provided through negotiation with developers, there'll be a local connection priority for Greater Norwich, and the new criteria will be applied as a pilot scheme via a reciprocal agreement for a trial period of 2 years. So are there any questions on the report?
Thank you, Kay. Just to open this up, David King.
Thank you very much. My first question is, when we had the budget or the spring statement a week ago, there was announcements about the government's plans for helping people to buy. Is that going to influence this policy and this affordable homes policy that we actually have in front of the cabinet will be seeing this week? Because it does look that could end up being a stronger product for some people, and would that potentially change what we're actually going to be looking at with what we can facilitate?
I don't believe it will. Part of the report, we do note that the introduction of first homes will be as possibly a comparable product to the discounted market sale, and I don't believe there will be a strong local connection criteria on those products, but we haven't got guidance on how they will be delivered. But we fully anticipate that developers may then want to deliver first homes in preference to discounted market sale, because we are seeing more developers moving away from discounted market sale because of the SIL liability on them. So they are tending to go more for shared ownership, shared equity, and presumably first homes when they come in.
Okay, Dave. Anyone else? No. Okay, so this is for a 2-year pilot, as I understand it, Kay. Dave, did you put your hand back up?
Yes, sorry, I'm just thinking with these changes from government, obviously the developers not wanting to build this sort of homes. If we're only going to be getting 15 a year delivered, is this strong enough, or should we be waiting to hear what the government is actually saying with their 95% and help to buy? Because looking at what the proposals were the other day, that actually could be a much stronger product than what we are looking at here, with a very, very small supply. Considering the amount of residents that we have in the district, being able to only facilitate 15, ultimately, is it worthwhile? And is this going to do enough for the residents as a whole anyway?
Chairman, could I come in? Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, please, Bill.
I think it's a a very fair question, Councillor King. I mean, from my perspective, what this does is it actually, because it's a reciprocal arrangement, actually it can be advantageous to some of our residents because it gives them a wider choice of other places that they can go. So I think that's a positive thing. Clearly, we plan and we work and we deliver infrastructure with our Greater Norwich partners. So therefore, it seems a good way to work with them on this. In reality, this is because it's only such a small number of homes, it's a pretty small issue. And I wouldn't necessarily say, let's put it on hold. The whole housing market will continue to change. Affordable housing provision will continue to change. And I think if we just defer or delay everything until that pans out, we could be here a long time. Clearly, I'm not telling you what to do. My inclination is let's just go with this. It's a 2-year pilot. Let's adopt it, get on with it, and see what pans out over time.
Yeah, I'll just come back on this. The other thing, Phil, is as well, in terms of whatever government policy comes out within the next month, 2 months, and the point that Dave's making here, or indeed another one or something, whatever's going on in this pilot, Broadland or South Norfolk or the city can't ignore it. So it has to be taken on board and looked at whatever arrives at whatever stage, irrespective of this. Because I do understand the point that Dave's making, you see, but I think just in terms of, that and you as well, that whatever comes back through local government, we're going to have to take on board anyway, because that's the nature of the beast, even though this is a trial period for 2 years. Would that be correct again for the minute, Phil?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chair.
Okay, so just following up on Dave's, there's a little bit of scrutiny. We've got that confirmation back there. It's quite an important point that Dave's raising. And of course, Broadland have to, take on board, consider whatever comes back forward anyway. Again, if we can minute that up, please, James, that'd be great. Is there anyone else to Sue Catchpole?
Thank you, Chair. So it's a trial for 2 years, and I'm wondering what success looks like then. How is this going to be measured over that time? And why is it such a small number?
So go on, Kay, you go.
Yeah, we imagine that we will just keep records. Each local authority area, the applications will come into the relevant enabling officer, and they will record, as we normally do, where the applicants were a current resident of, and the local connection criteria they hold for any other area. So that we keep records. Each local authority will keep records of the applicants that have been successful in being approved. It's probably such a small number because we've had such huge delivery of discounted market sale in recent years, and most of the schemes that they were delivering on are coming to the end of their delivery phase and are now going with different developers or different products on those sites. So that's where the first homes may then come in on these subsequent sites. Do you have anything to add, Phil?
No, and again, we see these fluctuations. It's not because we're delivering, small numbers of affordable housing. It's just that this particular tenure is, the demand has subsided because of the level of supply, and developers are turning to other products.
Okay, thank you.
It's the customers themselves that are actually determining what they want and what they don't want. I know that if I was in a certain bracket, there's both these schemes that would actually be a problem. So there is that issue as well, that further development of policy, etc., as Dave's mentioning, really. That's the drivers, not Broadland here. So Dave, one. Before I let you back in, Dave, Ken, is this on the same point before I let you in?
No, it's a question I've got for Kay as regards some of the need about applicants, etc. So
okay, if you just hold on, Ken, because I think that Dave, then this will just finish that off. Otherwise, we'll jump around. So, Dave, I'll let you back in if it's on this point.
Very quick question: what's the amount of officer resources that's required to do the pilot project from Broadland and South Norfolk's point of view?
Fair question. Yeah.
Purely the enabling officer. So currently we approve applicants as they come across from the developer on a first come first served basis. So if someone who is a current resident of Norwich City is the first person to apply and they've already registered with Help to Buy and they've got a local connection to Broadland, then they will be approved for the product. So and each enabling officer, each local authority does this. So South Norfolk Enabling will do that, and we will set up an arrangement with Norwich City as well.
So I'm just sorry, I should have been more clear. I meant like as a full-time equivalency.
It is not in addition to any current hours from the usual process for approving applicants. So we don't imagine it will require any additional resources.
So
it's the usual process.
What's the current full-time equivalency to facilitate this particular project?
I'm not entirely sure on that because it's part of the enabling post anyway. So it's within.
It's part of an existing post, right?
Yes,
okay,
that
makes it clear to me. So we're talking less than one full-time equivalency. So that's fine. Okay.
It's already within the workload, Dave. Back to you, Ken, now. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, good morning, Kay. I see down in here the applicants need to be registered with Help to Buy South. Now, is that run by us or is it website, or how does the applicant actually do it? Has to be done online? I just need to know because people are going to ask me these questions. And, you know, it says in April, but when in April will this start?
Yep, so Help to Buy South is the current Help to Buy agent for Norfolk, and that is where any persons, for example, interested in shared ownership are directed to apply with, and they can also register for discounted market sale and shared equity. But the beauty of them applying to Help to Buy South is if they wish to move between tenures, they're in a good position to look at new builds and shared resales of shared ownership properties being delivered all across Norfolk. So Help to Buy South, it was previously Help to Buy South East was the previous agent. The application process, it's an online application process. We send a link to the applicants, it's on the application form, and they apply, and it's generally 3 to 4 working days for them to get a decision on their application. And it also links into the Help to Buy equity loan applications, so they can then move to other products. If they're a first-time buyer, they can then look at equity loan products as well.
Okay, that's lovely, thank you. And it says in April, is there a specific date in April, or is it just not being voiced yet?
It's not been voiced, but it's basically from when we start getting any new build applications on any sites for April. So we may not get any in April because I might have already approved a large number of applicants earlier in the year. So we're not sure on timescales, but we anticipate starting on that date for any new builds coming through.
Okay, thank you very much.
Look at applicants that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move us along because we are running behind on time now. Is there anyone else? And I'll make you the last one. Okie dokie. Right, if we can turn to the recommendation, we've got 1 and also the bullet point and 2. Affordable home ownership products provided through negotiation with developers. Well covered that point. There will be a local connection priority for Greater Norwich. The new criteria will be applied as a pilot scheme via a reciprocal agreement for the trial period of 2 years. All those in favour of that recommendation, please show. James?
That's a unanimous, Chairman, as far as I can see.
Thank you, James. I was hoping that we might have even been finished by now, but we're not. But we do have just 2 items left, which is the new homes bonus and also the exempt minutes. But I think we'll probably finish all that within about half an hour. But it's just gone 11:30, and I think probably we do need to take a quick comfort break for 5 minutes. If that's okay with everyone. Yeah. Okay. So it's 5. We'll come back at 11:40. Please turn off your cameras.
Emma?
Yep. Can I just remind you we are live streaming, but yeah.
Sorry, could you point me to the papers, please, for this item? I don't see.
Yeah, it was a to follow item.
I can help there, Emma.
Yeah.
It's an email that's come out. It's the final papers, and I was actually going to cover this once everybody's back as well to make sure we can all see it. And yes, if you go into your emails, you'll see final papers, and just click on the box there, and you can open them immediately rather than go all the way back through into Councillor File Share. It will come up on your screen.
I've received mine, Steve, already through the post. So that's a
What
new homes bonus consultation. Is that the one?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, mine arrived this morning.
Yeah, I haven't received
Can I just make the point that I don't get my post until the afternoon on a regular basis here. So when they post something out first class the day before the meeting, I won't get it before the meeting.
Yeah. So,
but it did come in.
Yeah. Likewise, I'm with Sue on that as well. We get ours about 1:30 normally.
Yeah. Too. But it did come in on email last night.
Yes, that's right. So yeah.
Yes, I take that point, but I don't get the posted one. That's what I'm saying. So.
The host has turned off my camera. Could he please turn it on again?
Yeah, will do. Bear with me, Nigel. There you go.
You do.
Thank you.
Just got mine, literally.
James, are we all back?
Do you want me to take a roll call, Jim?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's what I'm prompting you for, actually.
Is Councillor Adams present? Doesn't look like it.
I did get a message. We did get a message here some time ago saying
He's back here, I think, now.
Yeah, here I am.
Oh.
Yeah, still popping in and out, dealing with various things from the queries from the builders. That's why I keep disappearing. But I am here now.
Good, thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Present.
Councillor Bullman.
His video mic are off.
No, he hasn't
Right.
come back yet.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present.
Councillor Harpley.
Present.
Councillor Holland.
Yep, here.
Councillor Karimi Gouvanlou.
Present.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Morrell.
Present.
Councillor Nurden.
Present.
Councillor Pratton.
Present.
Councillor Riley.
Present.
Councillor Shaw.
Virtually present.
No, it's just Councillor Bullman that we're waiting for.
Okay. Well, if you could all keep your eye open and just signal when he's back in for me as well, that'd be much appreciated, James or whoever. Right, so moving on to agenda item 14 on the late paper, final papers. We've got, it's on page 107. It's item 14, new homes bonus consultation, and Debbie Lorimer is presenting. Hello, Debbie. Welcome. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Chair. So I apologise for the lateness of the paper. We only agreed with both leaders that we would take it to Cabinet last week. So hence why I'm afraid it's late and incomplete. The consultation has been launched now and concludes on the 7th of April, and therefore it's the March cabinets, which are the only cabinets held within that period, that we can bring this paper to. And what we are doing is drafting at the moment our responses to the 30 questions that are there. It is a cross-council response. You can see from the attached consultation, which is included with your papers, that it's a very varied consultation. It ranges from things purely financial to questions around whether this scheme should in future encourage things like modern methods of construction and influencing things like the CIL, the Community Infrastructure Levy, in areas where land values are lower. So it's quite a complex consultation, and obviously for us it has been significant in terms of the previous scheme or the current scheme that's in place in providing us significant levels of financing income in to support our budget. So we absolutely want to make sure that we put our best response in as possible to try and influence the outcome. And therefore what will come to Cabinet will be a partially complete proposal, which we will then ask for delegation to the portfolio holders for planning and resources to complete this consultation with the relevant officers. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Debbie. Grant?
Yeah, I never received the paper, but I did download it. I just wanted to, it was just one comment, and it's semantics. But the recommendation reads to delegate to the portfolio holders for finance and planning in consultation with the Director of Resources and Director of Plan. And the question is, to delegate what? And that needs to be made specifically clear in the recommendation.
Debbie?
Thank you, Councillor Nerd. And yes, you're quite correct. I wrote this very late last week, and you're quite right. It was to delegate to the portfolio placing consultation the completion or the agreement of the final response, which will be submitted.
Okay, Grant.
Ask for that to be amended when it goes to Cabinet to amend the recommendation.
Yeah, it's a timing issue, Debbie. I think that's the point, isn't it, really? So I've then got I've got a question here from I've got a question from Sue Catchpole. I don't think it's an old question, so I think, is it related to this one?
No, it wasn't, Chair, but I just wondered whether we could find out how it's going to be written into this response that the houses that are built need to be the right type of housing for the areas where they're being developed. Thank you.
We can certainly, and I think already Phil has started to work with myself and Rodney in drafting some of the response, and absolutely that is something that we have mentioned, particularly around the influence around modern methods of construction, is that, you know, it has to be the appropriate method of delivery and the appropriate housing for the locality, and that's something that we can put in. It's very much as well linking reward with having local plans in place too. So as I say, it's quite a complex consultation, it's multifaceted in what it seeks to get responses to.
Thank you. I've then got again, I'm just checking to make sure this is an old question. I've got Ken and also Nigel. Ken, did you have a question on this?
No,
I'll come back to you, Grant.
That was the previous question.
Yeah, okie dokie. Nigel, was that the previous question? A previous item? Nigel Shaw?
I haven't even offered to speak to her, so nothing to do with me.
Okie dokie. All right. It's probably me getting a bit confused in these questions here. Grant, you want to come back in again?
Yes, thanks. It's a quick question. The consultation closes on the 7th of April, as Debbie mentioned. At what stage will we as members get a chance to look at and maybe even comment on what the portfolio holders for finance and planning and the Director of Resources in place have put together as a response from this council?
We can circulate the final proposed response to all councillors for their consideration. But as I say, the fact that it is delegated from Cabinet means that that final responsibility lies with the 2 portfolio holders and the 2 directors. But you will see a partial response that will come out just prior to Cabinet as well, Councillor Nurden, so you'll be able to see and feed back in at that point as well.
Could I just ask one question in terms of governance around this as well, Debbie, and Emma's here as well. Here as well. Following the Cabinet decision on this next week, obviously you've got time in between now and then, as you just said, Debbie, to to try to put together a bit more of a response, and you're going to need time after the Cabinet by the sounds of it. Is it likely that would be done within a 5-day period from Cabinet? What I just want to clarify here is so that we're clear in terms of calling. Clearly, a calling on this would be quite difficult. I'm suggesting. So I think probably, Emma, you can probably pick up why I'm saying this. So is it likely that you'd probably complete this within 5 days of the final portfolio holder decision on this? Is that the way you intend to deal with it?
I think it will be potentially, well, I can't guarantee that it will be completed within the 5 days, because obviously we need to consult with several people and take views and write it up and everything. So I can't guarantee that it will be complete within the 5 days.
And Emma, would this come back through in terms of portfolio holder notice decision to councillors?
So that's what I was going to say. So in terms of the decision that Cabinet will make, it will be to delegate it. So it doesn't need to be within that 5 days. It's to delegate it and make the decision at that point in time. As it's a delegated decision, then we will complete the necessary paperwork on the back of doing that delegated decision. I just need to refresh my memory which one of the various forms it is we need to fill in for that, and then obviously we can confirm that consultation response has been completed.
Okay. So would this be the P1 on portfolio holder decision? So would it be flagged back up to the council on a P1?
It's one of those PH1s,
PH1.
one of those one of those forms.
It's PH1.
One of those
ones. So just clarify for the committee as well before Dave comes in. The portfolio under delegated authority, portfolio holder would give notice that that's the decision they're making before April, and then there would be a 5-day period from that. If there was something that was in there that perhaps members saw as, oh, hang on a minute here, we want to go back on this. However, the timing would be tight for April for the consultation to end.
It's going to be very tight, and I think, Chairman, if I can, I will just take this point away because it's at which point is the call-in applicable? Is the call-in applicable at the point of Cabinet, or is the call-in applicable at the point of delegation? So can I take that away, Chairman, just to clarify that? And again, I'll email that round to members just to confirm that call-in point.
Thanks, Emma. And I think this has actually been quite a proactive thing for us to try and clarify, because this is, on this particular one, this is a sort of use a basic term. The basic term of it could be a bugger's muddle, after this. So this is actually proactive for the council and the committee. So Dave, you want to come in?
So just when did the consultation start?
The consultation came out, I think it was in the evening of February the 10th, but due to holidays, because I was on leave, then Rod's had a week off and everything, we have started work on it in between our week's leave. But yes, as I say, it missed the February cabinets, and it only can go to the March cabinets in terms of taking it through.
That's the reasons why it's taken 4 weeks to actually get to any councillors.
Well, the consultation is out there in the public space, so obviously, people can see it. It's there. But yes, in terms of drafting the responses, we've started work on it, but they're nowhere near complete.
Dave. I can see the reason why you asked the question, Dave. I understand that. I think really the point that Dave's making, just to try to be helpful here, is I think the question is, well, we know it's a complicated response. It's 4 weeks. We've now got, you know, another week to go for cabinet. I guess this is all to do with workload as well, Debbie. Is it the pressures that the team's under? Is it?
Well, obviously, we never know when a consultation is going to be launched. The first we know is when it is launched, so you can't pre-plan this into your workload. But yes, obviously, we have a lot that was going on at the moment in terms of budget setting, in terms of, I'm particularly tied up with getting health and safety for the elections in place, and day-to-day work as well. So we're obviously, you know, drawing on this. I already have my week pre-booked, so this came out on the Wednesday. I had a week off the following week. We started working on it that week, and then Rodney was off last week. So, you know, in terms of, and that was pre-booked well before the this consultation come out. So yes, unfortunately, I'm afraid we're due to holidays, and obviously we were taking holidays then because after the budget setting. So yes, trying to fit everything in, I'm afraid, when it suddenly just lands on your desk is something that obviously we try to do. So we have started work on it. It's just not in a position yet that we can say that's the final draft. We hope to get something that, as I say, is fairly way there, but it is, as you can see, quite a complicated and quite a long consultation, and we want to get it right.
Okay.
Chairman,
Can I just add to that, Chair, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other point just to bear in mind was that in a lot of circumstances, consultation responses are signed off by portfolio holders and or leaders. In this particular case, leaders asked for it to come through the committee process and to come to cabinet. That, as I think was introduced at the start, that was a call that was made fairly recently. So that has also meant that actually drafting this and putting this together has been slightly truncated in the last few days. As I say, in normal circumstances, a lot of these are signed off at a portfolio holder level or leader level. Thank you.
I know, and you're absolutely right, Phil, and I've been a bit curious about it, to be honest with you, as I was reading the papers. I understand this. Sorry, was there another member?
Yeah,
Emma.
Chair, yeah, just me, just to slightly assist as well. I mean, as Phil has said, normally this would be done at portfolio holder level, but we recognise that this is quite a broad consultation. Therefore, the decision was made to bring it in front of cabinet. Hence, my wanting to check back on where the call-in rests with this one as well. But I think it's also worth pointing out that the officers are working to be able to bring more context to the cabinet meeting on Tuesday, which of course all members are able to come along and attend or watch on YouTube. So hopefully there'll be more of an update at the cabinet meeting in terms of what that consultation looks like. So members interested, I would urge them to watch or attend cabinet next week.
And as you say, Emma, we just got to qualify, does this actually come under cabinet decision, but it's been delegated by cabinet to the portfolio holder? Therefore, there's probably going to be a notice on that PH1, and then a normal call-in process possibly would apply to that, but you're going to check all this out.
Absolutely, Chairman. I'll check it all out. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okie dokie. Anyone else? No, not seeing anyone else. Okay, so I'm just moving back to the papers on now my iPad. I'm trying to actually. I'm having a problem looking back in on my iPad now. The recommendation, James, can you just read out this, because
Chairman, would you like me to suggest
Yes,
an amendment to it, because I think it was asked to be made clear what the delegation is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So currently we've got to delegate to the portfolio holders for finance and planning in consultation with the Director Resources and Director Place. I would suggest you have to delegate, and then we insert. So it will read to delegate the response to the future of the new homes bonus consultation to the portfolio holders for. So you have that bit in the middle clarifying what that is.
That also checks with the governance as well. So thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
So in terms of, again, I'm just trying to go through the actual paper here. Can you see, Emma, the final resolve here to put the recommendation? Just read that out for me, because I'm having a problem finding it at the moment.
Yeah, so with the reworded resolution, as I've just said. Is that you're after, Chairman?
Would you like me to read it out, Chairman?
Brilliant, wonderful, yeah.
to delegate the response to the future of the new homes bonus consultation to the portfolio holders for finance and planning in consultation with the Director of Resources and Director of Place.
Brilliant. Okie dokie, thank you. So have we got a mover on this, or I could move this and expedite things? Yeah, Ken and Martin. All those in favour, please show.
That looks to be unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, James, and thank you all the officers around this, and Debbie and Emma as well. I much appreciated that, as you know, with the BONS position as well. Thank you. So we'll now move on to the final item.
I'm very sorry, but I have to go now. I've got another meeting I need to attend. I do apologise. I was hoping
That's
we'd be done
fine,
by
Dave.
now.
We've nearly wrapped up now anyway. Thank you, Dave. So we just move on to the final item, which is two items actually. Item 8, exclusion of press and public, which I'll just reference to. The press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business, because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraphs 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006, would be disclosed to them.